Hello everyone, this is Allison Gross and welcome to the September edition of Drunk Literature. Just, because, I don't sugarcoat anything for you guys. I tried to record Drunk Literature earlier this month and it went badly. Like, I got really overdrunk. Like, I got drunker than I ever have been before and, threw up massively and thought I was going to die. And, Fornius? Can you turn the light off, the light by the kitchen in the living room, please? It's creating, a bad backlight for my thing. So that was a really horrible experience, and so I'm not really into doing this right now because it's bad memories. And then I found that my 100-year-old super valuable irreplaceable poetry book I threw up on, and some of the pages got damaged, and I feel utterly shit because of that. So the message is, if you're going to do drunk literature and you're going to use a valuable poetry book, put a protective cover on it. Are you going to do that, please? Can you please turn off the light? No, in the living room. That light.
This one?
Yeah, okay, that's much better. Alright, so we're going to do our best here, and if I'm, not really into this, then please forgive me. So we're moving on with Rape of the Lock, and we did our introduction last month, and by the way, we have seasonal Angry Orchard tonight, Sinful Apple, which is apple and cinnamon. And for some reason, I used to love this. For some reason, it's tasting really shitty tonight. I'm guessing it's because it's a drier flavor. And I was drinking Cider Boy's strawberry cider before, so maybe it's it tastes bitter after that. I don't know. Okay, so to recap from last time, mock epic, so it means it takes epic conventions and puts makes light of them, puts them in trivial situations. So we have this main character, Belinda, who has this sylph named Ariel, who's sort of her spiritual guardian, and who has warned her through a dream, which she promptly forgets, that something bad is going to happen to her today. Not with more glories in the ethereal plain, the sun first rises o'er the purple main. Then, issuing forth, the rival of his beams launched o'er the bosom of the silver Thames. Fair nymphs in well-dressed youths around her shone, but every eye was fixed on her alone. I'm assuming they're talking about Belinda here. On her white breast a sparkling cross she wore, which Jews might kiss and infidels adore. Her lively looks a sprightly mind disclose, quick as her eyes, and as unfixed as those. So this is saying that her, being a coquette, which we established in the previous canto, she darts her looks about. And so it sounds like it's a compliment, because it says that her mind is as quick as her eyes, which makes it sound like she's smart. But then, as unfixed as those, her eyes are unfixed because as a coquette she's making glances at people, which I'm not going to try to show because I can't flirt at the best of times. I can only flirt with Fornius online. Like, it, not, yeah. And most of that was him. So I can't make eyes, and I'm certainly not going to try it while I'm drunk. So, um, but her eyes are unfixed because she's making glances at people, and it says her mind is as unfixed as her eyes, which means basically this is the 1700s version of saying that she's a ditz, pretty much. Favors to none, but to all she smiles extends. This is again her being a flirt. Oft she rejects, but never once offends. Bright as the sun her eyes the gazers strike, and like the sun they shine on all alike. Again. So she looks with favor on everyone, just like the sun does. Yet graceful ease and sweetness void of pride might hide her faults if bells had faults to hide. If to her share some female errors fall, look on her face and you'll forget them all. This is basically saying, like, you know, this is like the modern equivalent of guys like bitchy or dumb women who are hot, basically. This nymph to the destruction of mankind nourished 2 locks that graceful hung behind, in equal curls and well conspired to deck, with shining ringlets, the smooth ivory neck. So this is, when we talk about the rape of the lock, this is actually what they're talking about, and they mean a lock, not like a lock with a key, but a lock of hair. And if you've seen in the 1700s, especially if you've seen any movie or anything about Marie Antoinette, you'll see that they have these big wigs with all these curls. And sometimes they wore their natural hair. Sometimes when it looked like they're wearing a wig, it's actually their natural hair, because they would powder it. They would like put powder on their actual hair. I think, well, actually, we can be pretty sure that Belinda is in fact wearing her natural hair, because they described her having her hair dressed in the previous canto. But she's got curls hanging down, and the curls hanging against the naked skin of her neck are so enticing that they are the destruction of mankind. Love in these labyrinths her slaves detains. These labyrinths meaning the curls. And mighty hearts are held in slender chains, again meaning the curls. With hairy springs we the birds betray. Slight lines of hair surprise the finny prey. Fair tresses man's imperial race ensnare, and beauty draws us with a single hair. So, hair does not seem like a good source of these things, but I'm not up on the historical niceties of it. Like, basically what they're saying here is we use hair to make nets to catch birds and to make fishing lines to catch fish. And so hair snares all these things. And just like birds and fish are snared in our traps that we make out of hair, men are snared in the traps of women's hair. This is actually a really, really old metaphor that goes in the Renaissance, which is at least 100 years before this poem was written. They would often talk about, or not often talk about, but when I was in college, I wrote an essay where I included the discussion of one of the sonnets of either Spenser or Sidney. I think it was Spenser. Actually, I was talking about both of them, but I think this particular sonnet was by Spenser, of the fact that the golden fish hooks of her hair, like the fact that the hair was a snare, comparing it to catching fish. So this is a much older idea that Pope is probably trying to parody here. The adventurous baron the bright locks admired, he saw, he wished, and to the prize aspired. Resolved to win, he meditates the way, by force to ravish or by fraud betray. And for what success a lover's toil attends, few ask if fraud or force attain the ends. And so this is where the rape of the lock comes in. This baron is looking at her hair. And again, this is, when we, talk about how we're going to be reading a poem that has the word rape in the title, we think that it's going to be a very serious poem. But it's supposed to be a funny poem because the rape he's talking about is not of Belinda's person, it's of her hair. This guy is completely insane with lust. He has to have her curls. I don't know what he's going to do with those curls. The curls from this period's hairstyles were pretty tubular, but don't ask me. But just like in an actual rape or seduction, and again, we're using the older definition of rape here, which doesn't necessarily mean using physical force on a woman. It just means to have sex with her when it is not sanctioned. So if you trick a woman into having illicit sex with you, that could also be considered rape. Sometimes it was classified as seduction, which was a slightly different thing, but the main point of sex here is, or of rape, is that we're talking about illicit, unsanctioned sex to get the woman to have sex which is not in her best interest. And so that he will rape her curls, either ravish by force or by fraud betray. So he's either going to take them from her whether she wants him to or not, or he's going to trick her into letting him have them. For when success a lover's toil... basically what it's saying is... again, we're talking about the frat boys or the football players or whatever, when it's I totally banged that girl. Basically, if some guy is boasting that he's had sex with some really hot girl, his bros are not going to ask oh, well, did you get her drunk or did you force her? Was this legitimate sex? No, they're going to be you're the man, bro. So that's what he's basically saying. When success a lover's toil attends, few ask if fraud or force attain his ends. For this ere Phoebus rose he had implored propitious heaven and every power adored, but chiefly love, to love an altar built of 12 vast French romances neatly gilt, that there lay 3 garters, half a pair of gloves, and all the trophies of his former loves. So he's imploring heaven to grant his prayer, which is to get the curls. So this is again taking a serious, epic thing and juxtaposing it with something trivial. And then he's building an altar to love. And so, first of all, this is striking us as kind of odd because, these people are looking like the French court or the English court, I guess. But who are ostensibly Christian, but he's worshiping a pagan deity, which is weird enough, but there's a lot of things, of history of people imploring love and building altars to love and stuff. This was common in the chivalric romances. But then the altar he builds is out of romance novels. or maybe they're chivalric romances, I guess. But basically, they're probably the 1700s equivalent of trashy romance novels. He builds an altar out of them. And then he puts girders and half a pair of gloves. Essentially, so he builds the altar out of romance novels, and then he puts lingerie on it as an offering, essentially. And then, along with the lingerie, he puts all of the trophies of his former loves. Yeah, so essentially this guy sleeps around and whatever, and he's just like, I want this one so much right now, I'm going to put all of the love tokens I've gotten from the other women I've been with on this love altar. Made out of romance novels, along with this lingerie I put on it. With tender billido he lights the pyre, and breathes 3 amorous sighs to raise the fire, that prostrate falls and begs with ardent eyes soon to obtain and long possess the prize. The powers give ear and granted half the prayer, probably because he only put half a pair of gloves on the altar. The rest the winds dispersed in empty air, and now secured the painted vessel glides, the sunbeam trembling. Okay, so it granted him half the prayer, which essentially I think means, I haven't read this poem in a long time, but I think what it means is that he's going to get one of the 2 girls. Now secure the painted vessel glides, the sunbeams trembling on the floating tides, while melting music steals upon the sky, and softened sounds around the waters die. Smooth flow the waves, the zephyrs gently play, Belinda smiled, and all the world was gay. All but the sylph, with careful thought oppressed, the impending woe sat heavy on his breast. He summoned straight his denizens of the air, the lucid squadrons round the sails repair. Soft o'er the shrouds aerial whispers breathe, that seem but zephyrs to the train beneath. Some to the sun their insect wings unfold, waft on the breeze, or sink in clouds of gold. Transparent forms too fine for mortal sight, their fluid bodies half dissolved in light. Loose to the wind their airy garments flew, thin glittering textures of the filmy dew. Dipped in the richest tincture of the skies, where light disports in ever-mingling dyes, while every beam now new transient color flings, color that changes whence they wave their wings. Amid the circles on the gilded mast, superior by the head, was Ariel placed. His purple pinions opening to the sun, he raised his azure wand and thus begun. You sylphs and sylphids, to your chief give ear, fays, fairies, genii, elves, and demons, hear. Ye know the spheres and various tasks assigned by laws eternal to the aerial kind. Okay, so here's what's going on here. I'm not entirely sure, but I think what's going on is that Belinda is in a boat because she's traveling to court, and it was very common in England, like all the richest people traveled by boat because it was way more comfortable and probably faster than going through the narrow, smelly, crowded streets. Like, even way back in the Middle Ages, the nobles would all, like, when they were in London, they would travel by boat up and down the Thames. And so I think it's talking about Belinda's in a boat, and because she has these sylphs to guard her, they're, like, sitting on the boat, fanning it with their wings. And this is really this very sensual, beautiful, poetic description of the sylphs and, like, the light going through their gossamer wings. I think this is really, really awesome. Like, but anyway, so she's like on this boat, and they're like fanning the sails with their wings and stuff. And then Ariel calls them all together, and he's like, hey, sylphs, we got to have a meeting, and I need to talk to you because I'm your leader. Some to the fields of purest ether play, and bask and whiten in the blaze of day. Some guide the course of wandering orbs on high, or roll the planets through the bottomless, boundless sky. Some less refined beneath the moon's light pale, pursue the stars that shoot athwart the night, or suck the mists in grosser airs below, or dip their pinions in the painted bow, meaning the rainbow, or brew fear tempests on the wintry main, or o'er the glebe distill the kindly rain. Others on earth or human race preside, watch all their ways and all their actions guide. So he's like, okay, listen to me, all of you nature spirits, essentially, or all you spirits. I know that spirits all have different jobs assigned to you, and he goes through, like, a lot of you are assigned to care for forces of nature, and he talks about winter and sun and rain and the rainbow. And then he says, but some of us have been assigned to watch over humans. Okay, I am assigned to watch over Belinda, is what he's leading up to here. Of these, the chief, the care of nations own. Some of us don't just watch people, they watch nations. And guard with arms divine the British throne. Our humbler province is to tend the fair, not a less pleasing though less glorious care. To save the powder from too rude a gale, nor let the imprisoned essences exhale, to draw fresh colors from the vernal flowers, to steal from raindrops ere they drop, to steal from rainbows ere they drop in showers. A brighter wash, to curl the waving hairs amidst the blushes and inspire the airs. Okay, so he says some of us don't govern nations, we govern women. But that's really just as exalted as governing nations, because women are so great. And he's like, we don't watch over nations, but we have important jobs too. Like, we make sure that the lady's face powder doesn't get blown away on the wind, or her perfumes don't dry up, or we make sure that her hairs curl properly. You know, very important tasks like that. Nay, often dreams invention we bestow to change a flounce or add a furbelow. So he says we advise our charges in dream. The best fashion. We sometimes tell them that they should add an extra ruffle to their dress, and then they'll look really awesome. We do very important things here. This day black omens threat the brightest fair, that e'er deserved a watchful spirit's care. Some dire disaster, or by force or sleight, or what or where the fates have wrapped in night. Whether the nymph shall break Diana's law, or some frail china jar receive a flaw, or stain her honor or her new brocade, forget her prayers or miss a masquerade, or lose her heart or necklace at a ball, or whether heaven has doomed that shock must fall. So he's basically attempting to enlist all these spirits in helping him guard Belinda. And I'm not familiar enough with either of these poems to know that this is true. Well, actually, I've read both of them, so I guess it's true. But when I studied this in high school, they said that this scene is a spoof on, or a satire of, is seen in Milton's epic Paradise Lost, when which has a lot to do with, like, Adam and Eve picking the apple and getting expelled from paradise and stuff. Paradise Lost, yes. That apparently there's a scene, like, when it's known that there's a risk that they're going to pick the apple, what happens is all of the angels come and gather around the tree to guard it. And so this scene where Ariel is summoning all of these spirits to help him guard Belinda is supposed to be a satire on that, like that guarding the apple in Eden is on par with guarding Belinda's hair, essentially. Because he says, some horrible thing is going to happen to Belinda. The nymph shall break Diana's law. Diana, among other things, was a virgin goddess or a goddess of chastity, and any of her nymphs, note the use of the word nymph, like it's used throughout this poem to mean women, but any of the nymphs, the servants of Diana, who would fall in love or have sex or be involved with men, she would usually punish very severely, because that's what break Diana's law means, to commit some sort of sexual impropriety. Or she might break a china cup. Because those two things are equivalent. She could stain her honor, again, commit a sexual impropriety. Or she could stain her dress, again. She could forget her prayers, or she could forget to go to a party. She could lose her heart, she could fall in love, which could cause all kinds of trouble, or she could lose her necklace. Haste then, ye spirits, to your charge repair. The fluttering fan be Zephyr's care. The drops to thee, brilliant, we consign, and Momentilla, let the watch be thine. Do thou, Crispina, tend her favourite lock. Ariel himself shall be the guard of shock. To 50 chosen sylphs of special note we thrust the important charge, the petticoat. Oft have we known the sevenfold fence to fail, though stiff with hoops and armed with ribs of whale. So he's essentially basically assigning these spirits to guard different parts of Belinda's attire. Like one of them is going to guard her watch. And it's so important that he's giving 50 the charge of guarding her petticoat, which is probably saying, he doesn't want the skirt to be lifted up for any reason. That sometimes it will fail, even though, it wasn't a true hoop skirt, like it wasn't round in this period, it was more like squished back to front, so they would wear these things called hip panniers, which essentially you'd wear under your dress, like this big basket on each of your hips. I mean, it wasn't actually a basket, it was hollow, but that stuck out on each side. So essentially you were flat back to front, but then had these really, really wide hips. And I have actually seen, I am so lucky, I went to the Victoria and Albert Museum and saw they have this thing of actual historic English costumes from the time period that have been preserved. And there were literally ones that were so wide. There were a couple of the panniers in that display that were so wide that when you were wearing them, the woman, if she extended her arms to the side, couldn't really reach the ends of her own skirt. But these were made out of pieces of whalebone that were sewn into a frame, or steel. And that's what he says when he says stiff with hoops and armed with ribs of whale. Just like they used steel bars or pieces of whalebone in the corset, they would put the same things into this framework that they would hang the skirt over. Form a strong line about the silver bound, and guard the wide circumference around. Whatever spirit careless of his charge, his post neglects or leaves the fair at large, shall feel sharp vengeance. Oh, God. Soon or take his sins, be stopped in vials or transfixed with pins, or plunge in lakes of bitter washes lie, or wedged whole ages in a bodkin's eye. Okay, so he's saying, anybody who neglects their duty of guarding these different pieces of Belinda are going to be punished. And But again, the punishments are trivial. Like one of the things he says, they're going to be stopped in vials, like, and he means like little perfume vials. But I think this is supposed to be a play on the idea of a genie in a bottle. You know, but these sylphs are so tiny and so sort of trivial that they just get stopped up in little perfume vials, not in big bottles like genies. And one of the other punishments that shows how tiny they are is a bodkin. In earlier times, a bodkin meant like a dagger, but here it means a needle or like a tiny hairpin. So essentially, the sylphs are going to be stuck inside the eye of a needle. Gums and palmettos shall his flight restrain, while clogged he beats his silken wings in vain. Or alum's styptics with constricting power shrink his thin essence like a rivelled flower. Or as Ixion fix the wretch shall feel the giddy motion of the whirling mill, and fumes of burning chocolate shall glow, and tremble to the seas that froth below. Okay, so this is more funny punishments for the sylphs. Gums and palmetums. This is, okay, so they would make, either with a wig or with their own hair, they would make these elaborate hairdos. And again, remember, think about the hair, if you've seen any movies about Marie Antoinette, and if you haven't, please look up, like, images online. You'll see what I'm talking about. The way they got their hair to stay like this, or the way they had these really perfect curls, is they would have, like, a gum or a palmetum, which is like a hair substance that please excuse me, I'm going to share this with you. You could actually get palmatum in the present. It's like an earlier, more solid form of hair gel. But just to share this with you, this book, The Anatomy of Costume, I have loved this since I was a little girl. I love this book. Let's see. I don't know if you could see this picture, this lady's skirt. You can see how it's kind of standing out. So this is the idea of the hoop skirts we were talking about. But so this is the palmetums we have now are not so great, but so here's a compound used for dressing the hair from the period. Contains beef marrow, veal fat, nut oil, and vanilla all mixed together and scented, which must have been necessary, with oil of roses. So this hair palmature is pretty frickin' nasty, let's put it that way. And one of the punishments that the unintelligent sylphs are going to get is that their wings are going to be glued together with this nasty palmature. Another thing, so if you know Greek mythology, you know Ixion, who, I don't actually remember what he did, but he was some guy who offended the gods in Greek mythology. And his punishment was that he was put on a wheel that would revolve forever in the underworld. And so one of the punishments of the sylphs is to be put on a revolving wheel, but then we find out, in fumes of burning chocolate shall glow and tremble as the sea that frosts below. They're going to be put into a chocolate mill. Chocolate was this big trendy thing at the time. You know, everybody was really into their chocolate. He spoke, blah, blah, blah. This is one of the parts where my book got damaged. As the sails descend, some orb and orb around, something extends, some thread the mazy ringlets of her hair, some hang upon the pendants in her ear, With beating hearts, the dire event they wait, anxious and trembling on the breath of fate. So it's just like some of them are hanging on her earrings, some of them are like sitting inside of her curls. They're just all clustering around her to wait. So that's the end of Canto 2. We're going to go on and do Canto 3 now. Close by those meads, forever crowned with flowers, the Thames with pride surveys his rising towers. The strands of structure of his majestic form, which from the neighboring Hampton takes its name. We're talking about Hampton Court here, which is one of the royal palaces at the time. I'm going to get my other book out now because this has the same scene in it, so maybe I can get some of the stuff that I can't read here. So Hampton Court was one of the royal palaces, and I've actually been to Hampton Court. It was originally claimed as a royal palace in the Tudor period, and so it was still an important royal palace at this time, and basically what he's saying is that Belinda is going to attend court. She's traveling by barge, which we established in the last one. And what the fuck? Come on, dudes. Where is this? Ah, here we go. The Rape of the Lock. Here we are. Here British statesmen off the fall for doom of foreign tyrants and of nymphs at home. So again, this is the juxtaposition. British statesmen plan the fall of foreign tyrants, meaning they're planning military invasions or intrigues to take over other countries. But they're also planning to seduce women. It is the other important thing that courtiers do. Here, thou great Anna, whom 3 realms obeyed, is sometimes counsel taken, sometimes tea. This is Queen Anne, the queen at the time. She was the last of the Stuart rulers. And sometimes she meets there with her statesmen, and sometimes she drinks tea. Hither the heroes of the nymphs resort to taste awhile the pleasures of the court. In various talk the instructive hours they pass. Who gave the ball or paid the visit last? One speaks upon the glory of the British queen, and one describes a charming Indian scene. A third interprets motions, looks, and eyes. In every word a reputation dies. Snuff or the fan supply each pause of chat, with singing, laughing, ogling, and all that. Meanwhile, declining from the noon of day, the sun obliquely shoots his burning ray. The hungry judge soon the sentence sign, and wretches hang that jurymen may dine. I found this one of the biggest, one of the most cutting aspects of the satire in this. You know, all of the things about the women being so concerned about their makeup and stuff, it's like, okay, I can kind of take that in good fun. But this is essentially saying that that the judges in the courts are getting hungry because they can't go to dinner until the court closes. And so they're so eager to go to the dinner that they sign a sentence for people to hang just so that the thing will be over and they can go to dinner. Yeah. The merchants from the exchange return in peace, and the long labors of the toilet cease. No, this is not what you think it is. It's toilet like we talked about in Canto 1, which means people like primping and prettying themselves up, which they've been doing all day so they're ready to go to court in the afternoon. Belinda now with thirst of fame invites, burns to encounter 2 adventurous knights at Ombre singly to decide their doom, and swells her breasts with conquests yet to come. Okay, so Ombre is a card game. And I apologize if some of this canto is a little bit dull because a lot of it is about the specifics of the card game, which is a little bit too complicated to go in here. All the cards have like special slang names for them, blah blah blah. And if you don't understand the card game, some of the jokes don't really make sense. But so the other thing that you see here, so she wants to encounter two adventurous knights. So she wants to basically fight a duel with these knights, but the duel she fights is through cards. And her breast swells with conquest yet to come, which, literally means that there are these two noblemen that she wants to beat at cards. But conquest also means like sexual or romantic conquest, and so there are two men that she's going to make conquests of. And yes, okay, we can be like, okay, she's just talking about cards, but, she is a coquette. Straight the three bands prepare in arms to join. The three bands meaning the three hands of cards that these three people are holding. Each band the number of the sacred 9. So, ombre, we can deduce, involves 9 cards in hand. Soon as she spreads her hand, the aerial guard descend and sit on each important card. First Ariel perched upon a matador, then each according to the rank they bore, for sylphs yet mindful of their ancient race are, as with women, wondrous fond of place. So, basically, the sylphs are all still trying to huddle around her and protect her and shit. So, as soon as she picks up a hand of cards, they come and light on the cards to be near her, but also they're trying to point out to her which cards she should play. And they all perch on different cards based on how important they are. Like, the rank of the sylphs in their own personal hierarchy is the same as the rank of the cards they land on. And because sylphs are wondrous fond of rank and everybody, having a pecking order. Just like women, yeah. Behold, 4 knights in majesty revered, with hoary whiskers and a forking beard. I think this means kings, because they're the only ones. They're talking about cards, and that the kings are the only ones that have white beards. And 4 fair queens, whose hands sustain a flower. Yeah, the queens in card decks are frequently shown holding flowers. The express emblem of their softer power. 4 knaves in guards succinct, a trusty band, caps on their heads and halberts in their hand. Again, the jacks, meaning knaves, in cards are frequently shown holding axes, and halberds are like axes on big long stakes. And party-colored troops, a shining train, draw forth to combat on the velvet plain. Velvet plain meaning a card table that has like a velvet set down on it for people to lay their cards on. The skillful nymph reviews her force with care. Let spades be trumps, she says, and trumps they were. Now move to war her sable matadors, and show like leaders of the swarthy Moors. Spadillo, first unconquerable lord, led off 2 captive trumps and swept the board. And many more Manillo forced to yield, and marched a victor from the verdant field. So that's just basically saying that she's winning all the hands. And these matadors and spadillo and all of that shit are different cards. And when it says the verdant field, we're thinking of a green field like, an actual field where armies would be fighting, but this basically just means that the velvet on the table is green. Him Basto followed, but his fate more hard, gained but 1 trump and 1 plebeian card. With his broad sabre next, a chief in years, the hoary majesty of spades appears, the king of spades, puts forth 1 manly leg to sight revealed, the rest his many-colored robe concealed. The rebel knave who dares his prince engage proves the just victim of his royal rage. Okay, so basically that means that somebody, I think Belinda plays the king of spades, and then somebody else plays the jack of spades. So that's why he's a rebel knave, because he should be, since he's the jack of spades, he should be serving the king of spades, but he's being played against him. But since he's a lower ranking card, the king wins anyway, which is how it should be, because, rank. Yeah. Even mighty Pam that kings and queens are through and mowed their armies in the fights of Loo. I think that's a different card game. Sad chance of war, now destitute of aid, falls undistinguished by the victor spade. Thus far both armies to Belinda yield, now to the barren fate inclines the field. His warlike Amazon, her host invades. I think he's playing the Baron, the guy who wants the curls, is playing a queen, I believe. The imperial consort of the crown of spades. He's playing the queen of spades. The club's black tyrant first her victim died. Spite of his haughty maid and barbarous pride, what boots the regal circle on his head, his great limbs in state unwieldy spread, that long behind he trails his pompous robe, and of all monarchs only grasps the globe. I'm not sure what any of this shit means. The Baron now his diamonds pour apace, the embroidered king who shows but half a face. We see this in many card decks. The king of diamonds is facing sideways, so you only see like one eye and the side of his nose. And his refulgent queen, with powers combined of broken troops and easy conquest find, clubs, diamonds, hearts, in wild disorder seen, with throngs promiscuous strew the verdant green, and with dispersed a routed army runs of Asia's troops and Afric's sable sons. With like confusion different nations fly, of various habit and of various dye. Okay, so this is a little bit racist. The pierced battalions disunited fall in heaps on heaps when fate o'erthrows them all. So basically, the cards are different colors. Because we have hearts and clubs and everything. And this is the time when the British Empire is growing, and they're making colonies and spheres of influence in Asia and Africa. And those are peoples of different colors because they're different races, and so they're saying that the different colors of cards were mowed down just like the different races are mowed down by the British Army. Yeah. Racist shit. Okay, yes. The knave of diamonds tries his wily arts and wins, O shameful chance, the queen of hearts. At this the blood the virgin's cheek forsook, a livid paleness spreads o'er all her look. She sees and trembles at the approaching ill, just in the jaws of ruin and Codille. And now, as oft in some distempered state, on one nice trick depends the general fate. An ace of hearts steps forth, the king unseen lurked in her hand and mourned his captive queen. So she's hiding the king of hearts in her hand, which apparently I'm assuming is a pretty powerful card. So she's holding it in her hand to play an advantageous moment. And the story is the king is angry because his queen, the queen of hearts, has been taken by one of the other players. He springs to vengeance with an eager pace and falls like thunder on the prostrate ace. The nymph exulting fills with shouts the sky, the walls, the woods, the long canals reply. O thoughtless mortals ever blind to fate, too soon dejected and too soon elate. Suddenly these honors shall be snatched away and cursed forever this victorious day. So she's just won the card game and she's super pleased about it. And the narrator is essentially saying, oh yeah, she's super pleased now, but bad shit's about to happen to her. For lo, the board with cups and spoons is crowned, the berries crackle and the mill turns round. On shining altars of Japan they raise the silver lamp, the fiery spirits blaze. From silver spouts the The graceful liquor glides while China's earth receives the smoking tide. Once they gratify their scent and taste, and frequent cups prolong the rich repast. Okay, so essentially what all that shit was about is they're serving tea. Yeah. So shining all the berries, meaning coffee or berries. Wait. Yeah, no, not tea, coffee. Yeah, they're having coffee. The berries are like coffee beans, and so they're grinding the coffee beans in the mill. And then shining altar of Japan means something lacquered, and they have a little like Bunsen burnery thing on it to heat the coffee. And China's earth, meaning China cups. They're pouring the coffee into cups. So this is all. They've had a card game and they're taking coffee now. That's all that's going on here. But it's described in this really overblown style because it's a mock epic. Straight hover round the fair her airy band, some as she sipped the fuming liquor fanned, some o'er her lap their careful plumes displayed, trembling and conscious of the rich brocade, coffee which makes the politician wise, and see through all things with his half-shut eyes, sent up in vapors to the baron's brain, new stratagems the radiant locks to gain. So, like, her sylphs are still gathering around her, and apparently the coffee is making the baron extra lustful. I don't really understand. Does coffee do that, or was that just because coffee was this like rare, luxurious thing that it was considered like an aphrodisiac at the time? I don't know. Cease, wretch, youth, desist ere 'tis too late. Fear the just gods and think of Scylla's fate. She was actually Scylla didn't really do anything wrong. She was like poisoned by Circe because she was pissed off that the guy that she loved Scylla instead, and so she transformed her into a monster. But anyway, changed to a bird and sent to flit the air, she deeply pays for Nicias's injured hair. Oh, this must be a different Scylla. Okay, I don't know what this Scylla is all about. But when to mischief mortals bend their will, how soon they find instruments of ill. Just then Clarissa drew the tempting grace, a two-edged weapon from her shining case. So ladies in romance assist their knight, present the spear and arm him for the fight. He takes the gift with reverence and extends the little engine on his fingers' ends. Okay, so what happened is there's this other lady there, and she takes out a pair of scissors and gives it to the Baron. That's what it means by the two-edged weapon, because scissors have two parts, and then he puts it on his fingers, and he puts his fingers into little scissory things. But it's drawing this comparison to romances. This is especially the case in the Arthurian legends, that women are known to arm their knights. They present them with their special sacred weapons. And we can even, this is the most classic example, this is the Lady of the Lake giving Arthur Excalibur. So that the weapon that he is to use for his great fight, this woman bestows upon him. And likewise, this lady hands the Baron a pair of scissors. That is his weapon for this. Then just behind Belinda's neck he spread, and o'er the fragrant steam she bends her head. So she's like leaning down to like drink her coffee, and so her neck is exposed, and he's reaching back to cut it. Or not cut her neck, but cut the hair that's lying over her neck. Swift to the lock 1,000 sprites repair, 1,000 wings by turns blow back the hair, and twice they twitch the diamond in her ear, thrice she looked back, and thrice the foe drew near. So the sylphs are going to protect her, and the first they fan their wings to like blow her hair away from him. And they also like go and like pull on her earrings so she pulls her head back. Just in that instant, anxious Ariel sought the close recesses of the virgin's thought, as on a nosegay in her breast reclined. He watched the ideas rising in her mind. Sudden he viewed, in spite of all her heart, an earthly lover lurking in her heart. Amazed, confused, he found his power expired, resigned to fate, and with a sigh retired. So this is kind of confusing. Essentially, so Ariel can like look into her mind. So he's doing that. And he finds out that she's in love with somebody. And what I think is going on here is that what was established in Canto 1 is that sylphs are the guardians of coquettes. And the thing is that coquettes don't ever, go to, like, give their heart to any one man. As we talked about in Canto 2, her eyes like the sun shone on everyone. So if she is in love, or if she has a particular man that she's more strongly interested in, then Ariel as a sylph can't be her guardian anymore. I think that's what's going on here. So he gives up, like her guards are gone now because she's rendered herself unfit for them. The peer, meaning the bearer, now spreads the glittering forefex wide to enclose the lock, now joins it to divide, joins the scissors together to divide her hair. Even then, before the fatal engine closed, a wretched sylph too fondly interposed. Fate urged the shears and cut the sylph in twain, but airy substance soon unites again. So basically, one of the sylphs tries to stick himself in between the scissors. He gets cut in half, but, it's not so bad because sylphs are not bound by the physical world, so he just pops back together. It's kind of like a Looney Tunes cartoon, almost. The meeting points the sacred hair to sever from the fair head forever and forever. Then flash the living lightning from her eyes, and screams of horror rend the affrighted skies. Not louder shrieks to pity in heaven are cast when husbands or when lapdogs breathe their last, or when rich china vessels fallen from on high in glittering dust and painted fragments lie. So this is an absolute blasphemous tragedy. Like, this is like the worst thing that could happen to Belinda. She is screaming and crying, and what other things might happen? Your husband could die, which was massive tragedy at the time because women were dependent on their husbands for support. Or your dog could die, which, still emotionally that hurts, but it's not as big a tragedy as your husband dying because you are not likely to be destitute if your dog dies. Or, equally important, you could break some porcelain. That's also really, really tragic. Let wreaths of triumph now my temples twine, the victor cries, the glorious prize is mine. O fish in streams or birds delight in air, or in a coach and six the British fair. As long as Atalantas shall be read, or the small pillows grace a lady's bed, while visit shall be paid on solemn days, with numerous wax lights in bright order blaze. Will nymphs take treats or assignations give, so long my honor, name, and praise shall live. So this guy's not too smart. The woman is obviously freaking out and pissed off, and he's bragging about it. He's basically saying, what I did, cutting off this woman's curl, is such an awesome thing that my fame will last forever. It will last as long as there are fish and birds, and as long as British nobility ride about in coaches, because that's going to last forever. As long as nymphs take treats or assignations give. So take treats means they're taking gifts from probably men, and assignations are sort of meetings with men where shit might happen. So nymphs take the treats and then give the assignations. When time should spread from steel receives its date, and monuments like men submit to fate, steel could the labor of the gods destroy, and strike to dust the imperial towers of Troy. Steel could the works of mortal pride confound, and hew triumphant arches to the ground. Would wonder then, fair nymph, thy hairs should feel the conquering force of unresisting steel. So he's referencing back to another epic now. He's referencing the Iliad. Steel, in this case, meaning swords and such, conquered Troy. And in likewise, steel, meaning scissors, cut your hair. And is that the end of the canto? Yes, that is the end of Canto 3. So, this has 5 cantos. It works kind of like a Shakespeare play in that. I still haven't gotten my Shakespeare thing uploaded. I need to get on that. That usually the first 2 acts in Shakespeare are the build-up, and then Act 3 is like the highest point of tension, and then 4 and 5 are kind of the resolution. So in this one, Act 3, or Canto 3 that we just read, is this is where the actual rape of the lock takes place. And so the Baron now thinks he's the shit, and Belinda is fucking pissed off. And we're going to find out what happens next month. Till then, everyone, bye!